Dostoyevsky wrote, "Man is a being who wants to find meaning in his existence." This phrase appears in his novel, The Brothers Karamazov, first published in 1880. Specifically, it is found in Book 2, Chapter 6, in the section titled The Grand Inquisitor. This phrase reflects the author's deep concern with existential questions and the purpose of human life. Dostoyevsky addresses the fundamental nature of human beings and their constant search for meaning in a world full of suffering and contradictions. In this phrase, he suggests that humans are inherently oriented toward the pursuit of meaning and purpose in their lives. People long to understand their place in the universe, their relationships with others, and the significance of their experiences and actions. This search for meaning can manifest in various ways, through religion, philosophy, love, art, knowledge, or the pursuit of truth. Dostoyevsky was deeply interested in how people confront life's difficulties and find meaning amid suffering and uncertainty. For him, this search is essential to the human condition and can influence all aspects of life, from morality and ethics to the understanding of good and evil. This leads us to explore one of his most fascinating works, Notes from Underground. The novel centers on an anonymous narrator, a bitter and alienated man living in St. Petersburg who calls himself the Underground Man. Through his internal monologues and reflections, the narrator explores themes such as nihilism, alienation, individual freedom, and the nature of human existence. The Underground Man presents himself as someone deeply dissatisfied with society and with himself. He despises social norms and conventions, yet he feels incapable of escaping them. His behavior is often contradictory and self-destructive, reflecting an internal struggle between his desire for freedom and his need for belonging and acceptance. This story is about a retired middle-aged civil servant who has just turned 40 and feels utterly miserable. He lives in poverty in a tiny underground apartment and has no friends. Dostoyevsky wrote this book as a response to the emerging philosophical and social currents in Russia and Europe at the time, particularly the rise of nihilism and existentialism. It is his great warning to all of us. In other words, he tells us, do not live like this man, or you will end up like him. In this video, I will attempt to delve into the fundamental lessons that I believe we can draw from the Underground Man's story, as well as explore how to avoid following the steps that led him to become such an unfortunate person. Absolute passivity and constant contemplation refer to a situation in which a person is trapped in a cycle of inaction, failing to take any meaningful steps in life and limiting themselves to thinking and reflecting without acting accordingly. This can indicate emotional paralysis, indecision, or a lack of motivation to take concrete actions that could change their situation or improve their life. Dostoyevsky's novel is filled with moments where the narrator claims he will do something. He says he will start a fight with a military officer, but he never does. He wishes all kinds of bitter and hateful misfortunes upon those around him, but he barely lifts a finger to make anything happen. His internal monologue is nothing more than brooding, while his external actions show no execution. This is one of the key components of his intense misery. The narrator divides the world into two types of people: those who act and those who think. He expresses deep envy toward those who act. These people achieve things, are virile, active, and will stop at nothing to get their way. Meanwhile, those who only think may conceive grand ideas but ultimately go nowhere. What good are ideas if one cannot act on them? This inability to carry out his desires slowly eats away at the narrator and undermines his self-respect. His internal monologue is filled with thoughts cursing himself for not acting and promising to act next time, fully knowing that when the moment comes, he never will. Many of us can relate to this feeling. How many times have you promised yourself or others that you would do something but then failed to follow through? Socially, we often talk about the things we will do, but when we take no action, we lose respect for ourselves. As this pattern intensifies, you will lose your self-respect and begin to see yourself as incapable of action. Like the underground man, this will lead you to a form of learned helplessness. There is a story in the book that is particularly relevant to this discussion. The narrator feels insulted by an acquaintance and swears to slap him in the face to restore his self-respect. He takes a carriage to where he believes this acquaintance is, but upon arriving, the man is nowhere to be found. At this small obstacle, the narrator immediately gives up. He has stated multiple times that this slap is the only thing that will restore his self-respect, yet he surrenders at the slightest inconvenience. He holds himself in such low esteem that he no longer even cares if he respects himself. Dostoyevsky's warning to us here is clear. Have faith, confidence, and self-respect. Sitting idly and promising yourself that you will do something while knowing you never will carries the risk of eventually causing you self-contempt. And that is a price no one should be willing to pay. Dostoyevsky explored the psychological and moral consequences of avoiding challenges. He criticized the attitude of those who sought to escape life's difficulties and responsibilities, arguing that this led to an empty and purposeless existence. Again and again, the narrator flees from challenges, and as a result, he never grows as a person. One of the first things he says in the book is that he quit his job as soon as he had the chance, and since then, he has dedicated himself to nothing. He has nothing to fill the void left by this lack of confrontation, and this causes him suffering. By avoiding challenges, he has given himself the greatest challenge of all, leading a meaningless life. The underground man is someone who has completely abandoned the game and then wonders why he is not having fun. Dostoyevsky had a critical view of intellectual arrogance. In his works, he often portrayed characters who exhibited this trait as lacking humanity and morality. He believed that intellectual arrogance led individuals to become disconnected from their own humanity. The underground man traps himself within his own intellectual arrogance. At any moment, he could turn back from the disastrous life he has created for himself. But instead, he continues downward, convinced of his own intelligence. Throughout the book, he is repeatedly confronted with challenges to his worldview. There are his old school friends, who have achieved greater success and seem kinder to others. There is Liza, who manages to show optimism and empathy despite her bleak circumstances. He even writes extensively about more successful and meaningful approaches to life than his own. But he dismisses them all for one petty reason. He believes they are not as intelligent as his own. Dostoyevsky is warning us about a particular kind of person that many of us risk becoming. He warns people like you who are interested in learning and improving your life, not to fall into the trap of intellectual arrogance, where learning becomes impossible. In my opinion, this is one of the most overlooked aspects of the narrator's character in the novel, his arrogant assumption that his way is the smartest. Anyone can be saved from a path of self-destruction, as long as they keep an open mind and are willing to learn new things. experiment with new perspectives, and continue growing as a person. The underground man has closed himself off to any kind of evolution and has confined his character to being static and stagnant, all because he believes he knows more than everyone else. According to Dostoyevsky, this is one of the worst tragedies a human being can face. When we believe we know everything, we inevitably learn nothing. To conclude, I quote Dostoyevsky, "If you want to be respected by others, the best thing you can do is respect yourself. Only through self-respect will you inspire others to respect you. If you made it this far, you are truly unstoppable. Every step you take toward knowledge and self-improvement makes you stronger. Keep pushing forward, keep believing in yourself, and never stop growing." If this video inspired you, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and keeps us bringing you more amazing content. And before you go, drop a comment saying, "I am brave." Let the world know that you are fearless and ready to take on any challenge. A big hug from the being of knowledge.